All right. Welcome everybody. What a pleasure to host you all here. Very happy with the turn on the numbers that we got. A lot of people interested in this webinar. So I'm very excited to host it, the webinar for you. My name is Bruno Abileira. My co-host is going to be Khalil Parker. I think that's the guy that you guys want to talk about and want to talk with and here talking. He is a principal metallurgist at Datamine, and he has lots of experience on the metal accounting side, on the processing side. He's been working in a lot of gold operations here in Africa as well, even though he's based in Australia. And I think he'll be able to tell a little bit about why metal accounting shouldn't be this hard. And I think it's going to be an exciting conversation. I think just before I hand over to Khalil, I just want to give you a bit of an introduction of Datamine Africa in general, and then I'll hand over to our main star. Okay, so I just want to really bring to your attention, who is Datamine, where we are. So we are a global business on the mining software industry. We are located on several mining districts around the world, but specifically here, focus in Africa. We have our offices in Johannesburg and in Accra. We also have our representations in Zambia and in Morocco. Datamine has grown quite a lot in the past 5 years. We almost tripled our size in terms of staff. We are like more than 100 technical professionals, mine engineers, geologists, business consultants, surveyors, metallurgists, and over 100 developers in several of our developing hubs in Australia, UK, and Canada. We're very proud of our global positioning, and then we are proud to say that we are located on every single mining district of the planet. I think speaking more proudly then about Africa, that's where we are based here. We have a strong representation in South Africa, being in the country since 1995, and we have now our offices in Ghana, Zambia, and Morocco as well, with local representation. Yeah, in Africa, we have over 55 employees from different nationalities, different cultures, background. We speak so many different languages, including the Englishes and Portugueses of this world, but also the local languages in Africa, which makes communication key for us. In terms of technical people, we are over 35 technical people in this office here. And I think it needs to be like that. We are a technology company, and we want to provide you the best services during implementation, during training, and beyond. When you need support, when you need assistance, I think that's a big commitment for us, making sure that our customer care is at the top level. If you look into our product range, some of you will know Datamine product range, and it is quite vast. I think most recently Datamine has been advancing quite a lot on the operations and supply chain side. I think over the the years we've been historically being associated with a lot of MRM space products where we actually made our name, but we are venturing more and more into operations and supply chain. And I think that's a little bit about what we're going to talk about here. Is on the supply chain side, is on the production accounting. We're going to talk about metal accounting today, which is one of the products that we're going to maybe highlight on the conversation during this webinar. If I look into some of the products that I think are related here, specifically, when we talk about metal accounting, production accounting is our best practice metal accounting system for the mining and minerals industry, and I think that's what Khalil is going to end up talking a little bit about today. But I think alongside with them, I kind of just paired with C-Class, which is our fantastic LIMS product that can integrate directly with your metal accounting. Mine Market, which is a enterprise solution for inventory tracking, logistics, and sales and marketing solution. So you can have a whole visibility of your supply chain and how the products that you have on the ground would commercially translate into business for you, into marketing for you. And Reconciler as well is a fantastic tool to do reconciliation. So even though we're going to be talking about metal accounting today, metal accounting is just a portion of a much bigger thing. So integration on those products is key. And we have a product called iHub that helps us to integrate all of them together. So today we're going to be speaking specifically about metal accounting and production accounting, but I think the big picture is important. The Datamine product sits on the level 3 in terms of integration. hierarchy here, and then on the manufacturing execution solution. So that's where we sit. An important thing is that production accounting on its own, it's powerful. But I think when you put it together with a LIMS product, with a inventory logistics, and then you can have like integration beyond those among those guys, and feeding, for example, to ERPs and receiving information from dispatch systems, from process control systems, then you jump into a different level. So I think even though we're gonna be talking a little bit about like the basics of moving around from maybe an Excel sheet based metal accounting to a system based metal accounting system, you shouldn't stop there. I think you should see big picture, and there's more beyond that. There is integration that can really make this metal accounting component really stands out and give you a fantastic solution overall. So I think that's it. I think I'm just some of the basics, just to give you a bit of an idea who we are, where we are, and then what is there for you beyond your metal accounting side. So if you have any interest on talking about a little bit more about this, you can always drop me an email or just even a question here on the webinar, and I'll get back to you. After this webinar, all your questions will be answered and circulate back to everybody that attended or registered. So we can establish a communication line there if you want. You can have my contact details from my colleagues here in South Africa as well. And then we can establish our connection from there. Okay, I think without further ado, I'm just going to hand over this to Khalil now. He's going to show us a little bit more about the metal accounting itself, and how we can do a little bit better than just the old Excel spreadsheets that you might be stuck to.
Hi everyone. Yeah, thank you again for joining today, and thank you for your time. Just to introduce myself, my name is Khalil Parker. I am a metallurgist. I studied at the West Australian School of Mines. I've been working as a metallurgist for 15 years in the industry. I have spent most of my time doing contract and consulting work, mainly around Australia, but also in West Africa as well. So I believe that gave me benefits in my career by working in many operations around the world, and also working in various commodities and mineral processes. So the experiences that I got have led me to where I am today. So my metallurgy experience is mainly in gold processing and also base metals flotation. The webinar today is really focusing on the experiences of myself and the data mine team on the common issues we find in metal accounting systems that we see, mainly in the Excel-based systems that are most common in the industry. So the agenda for today, we'll just go through some of the inherent issues that we have found in the industry, and also go through some issues that we find with purpose-built systems. So these purpose-built systems might be systems from even competitors, but also systems that have been developed in-house by some companies. And also we'll go through production accounting itself, how that can provide a solution for these issues, and then some time for question and answers. So firstly, production accounting or metallurgy and metallurgical accounting, that comes down to us as people. So metallurgists on mine sites, in my experience, I've seen that the industry itself is a pretty small industry. There's not too many metallurgists out there, but there's also a reasonably high turnover in the industry. So metallurgists move around to different companies, but also they get promotions, or they move into a different area of the business. They might go from plant metallurgy to project metallurgy, for example. And all of these moves basically comes down to a loss of expertise in that area. And That's one of the main challenges, because often there'll be a metallurgist who knows a lot about the metal accounting system, and they'll move away into a different area, and they won't be doing metal accounting on a day-to-day basis anymore. And then they'll come back maybe, and then they'll realize that some data entry has been incorrect in the period that they've been there. Before, they were there monitoring that, but now, while they were gone, no one had been monitoring that particular piece, and it hasn't been correct. So along with a high turnover rate, a low turnover rate is also troublesome at times, and that's mainly because there isn't a new skill set essentially coming into the team. So the experience level that you have is from obviously the experience that you have and the experiences that you have on that site. So often having a new person join the team, they can bring their own experiences from other mine sites they've worked on, and the metal accounting systems that they've seen elsewhere. Ultimately, really, that comes down to people getting comfortable, I suppose, where they are. And lastly, obviously, there's always the unfamiliarity of people with Excel, for example. So a lot of people have varying levels of Excel proficiency. So most common is people aren't too familiar with changing macros or doing VBA code, that sort of stuff. So that's the most common thing we find with metallurgists on particular mine sites. Obviously, the main thing with production accounting or metallurgical accounting is data entry and managing that information. So I used to spend, on some mine sites, I've spent an hour and a half entering data every morning. It's not a fun job to be doing, and that's obviously the tasks that you want to try and remove yourself as metallurgists from doing, so that it can free up our time to actually do plant metallurgy and actually improve processes and that sort of thing in the plant. So the main things that you see from a data entry perspective is obviously just a common typing errors, but also poor workflow is often the biggest killer for data entry. So normally, the data entry page for your Excel spreadsheet is not quite matched to the log sheet that you're getting that information from. So you're often kind of scrolling sideways across the spreadsheet. You're often changing between tabs. You might often be entering data into multiple Excel spreadsheets even. So that just leads to errors, just because you have to keep on going around the page essentially to enter different pieces of data. The other problem as well, the main one, is when calculations are in the same areas as the inputs are. So often, calculations can be overwritten either by accident or on purpose by a user. So they might actually type in a physical number where a calculation should be, and those changes often propagate through the rest of the accounting spreadsheet. And that's really kind of the most dangerous situation, where data or calculation cells are actually overwritten. So and sometimes those things take a long time to be picked up eventually. And then our favorite, so for everyone who uses Microsoft Excel, I'm sure these images give you nightmares. There's always errors with Microsoft Excel. Obviously, it's just a standard Microsoft product. There isn't really any support for Microsoft. Sometimes you wake up and they've done an update and they've just changed a particular function. A common thing was that they changed how Microsoft Excel can connect to databases. And all these sorts of things just happen overnight, essentially, without any real warning. But ultimately, a common thing would be instead of deleting a particular number in a spreadsheet, someone might actually delete a cell and cause reference errors and everything else like that. Sometimes, obviously, links when a spreadsheet is linked to other spreadsheets, you get link errors. This could just be because someone's renamed the file, because there's been a network issue, the file has been moved even. And often as well, with formulas, people have the best intentions, and they make an actual educated choice to actually change a calculation. And you have this saying in data mine that the smallest changes are often the most dangerous, because even the small change that you think you're going to do has a much larger impact on the entire metal accounting balance. So these are just some of the things to actually be mindful of and look out for. And obviously, lastly as well, there's just calculations that are just simply incorrect. You would be surprised how many times we review a customer's accounting system and find that they just have basic errors such as an assay being multiplied by a wet mass, or a division happening instead of a multiplication. Those sorts of simple things are extremely common from the spreadsheets that we often see. Ultimately, really, and this all kind of leads back to a lack of process. So there's an AMIRA P754 code of practice for metallurgical accounting. This code of practice states quite clearly that there should be a set of instructions for metal accounting, and it should be well documented how the system is created. This is often the most overlooked piece. So often, even if there is documentation on metal account on the day-to-day use of the metal accounting system, it's often out of date. And every single time I've been taught a particular site's metal accounting, it's always been a user who's actually shown me how to use it and how to do it. So the main thing is that with Microsoft Excel, there is no authorization process as well. So data can or a report can often be released without it being checked by a senior metallurgist or someone like that. And sometimes that's led to reports being sent out that weren't verified. If you couple all this, I suppose, with turnover of staff, then it's often a process, or it's often a system that gets lost as well. So while there might have been a metallurgist and a senior met who had an understanding that they would check each other's work or check the reports each other before it got sent out, sometimes that gets lost with turnover as well, with new staff coming in. Ultimately, then, with purpose-built systems, again, whether or not these are other systems, or whether or not these are built in-house by a particular company, there often are usability and design issues. You're not easily able to use the system that's in place, and also that kind of leads to a lot of the older systems have, I suppose, pure integration or the ability to extract data into Excel, which is great, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. But more recently in the industry, there's been a push towards, higher powered reporting tools like Power BI, for example. And that's really the main focus where the industry is going now, into kind of the more reporting solutions. Then, of course, some of the big issues are that often systems are just a big black box. So there's no real understanding of how the system is built, again, partly due to lack of documentation, and also there's a lack of vendor support in order for us to actually get that information out. From my experience, I've had a system before where, due to the lack of support, we couldn't actually change the plant or change the accounting system to actually fit what the plant was now. And then yeah, we eventually decided to scrap that metal accounting system and go to another system. Obviously, it all requires significant investment of time from users, but really the absolute worst scenario that you can ever be in would be that you have a half and half system, which is actually very common. So you'll have a half and half system because the purpose-built system is now not representative of the plant that you have. You might have upgraded the gravity circuit or something in the plant, and now you've got an Excel spreadsheet that you run side by side with this purpose-built thing, and that's essentially the worst of both worlds, because now both of your metal accounting systems are actually completely wrong. So you don't actually have one source of truth anymore. So yeah, ultimately that's the worst scenario that we see in the industry at the moment. Where does that really leave us? Ultimately, it's up to us as metallurgists to want to improve and to want to be better, essentially. So it's up to us to convince our supervisors to improve the processes. It's up to us to push these changes to improve the system and improve the integrity of our systems. These sorts of things as well. I know from personal experience that it's often hard to push capital funding for a production accounting system, but really as well, it's about managing the amount of risk that you're comfortable with. There have been companies that have been fined. Companies listed on the Canadian Stock Exchange that have been fined $40 million due to incorrect auditing systems that they had and incorrect metal accounting systems that they've had. So there are significant risks for a poor system, essentially. From a production accounting point of view, ultimately, what we have built is a comprehensive and robust accounting system that is repeatable and accurate. So the way that works is ultimately you have inputs coming in. So the ultimate goal is to have all the data integrated, but obviously not all companies have that facilities. So you can obviously input data manually as well, but the data gets acquired by production accounting, and then there's a calculation and validation stage. So in the background, it does all the calculations, and then importantly, there is an approval process. So traditionally, we set up a two-stage approval process. So a metallurgist and a senior metallurgist will have to approve the data, and only when that approval process is complete will the data then be published. So published is what we essentially call approved data, and this published data is what is made available to the reporting system that you have. So we can obviously make reports, but more often we find that our customers are often told from their corporate perspective that they need to be using Power BI or any other reporting solution, and that's often the case. So after publishing, though, the system automatically locks all the data. And what that does then is that the data basically sits there. So on a normal day, you'll start from here, you'll go through the entire process, and it'll lock. All your information will be locked, and then that's the end of the day. But sometimes you might have an assay that you need to enter again. So that will be treated as new data that's come in. What that does is it triggers a quarantine process. Now, this quarantine process allows the data to basically be accepted by the system, but it's not actually used in any calculations or anything until a user actually approves this information, and then it goes through the approval process again. So once a user has approved it out of quarantine, and once two users have approved it to be published, then that information will eventually make it to the reporting system. But there's a process there that needs to be managed. So This is ultimately the system that we use to ensure that the system is reliable, it's repeatable, and it's accurate. Ultimately, as well, the backbone of a reliable accounting system is a well-designed system, realistically. So what we do when we're implementing production accounting is we narrow a typical flow sheet down into a metal accounting flow sheet, and we try and keep it to essentially like the most important elements of the metal accounting. So for a flotation circuit, instead of doing every single cleaner and rougher, you can essentially bring it down to just the actual product streams. Yeah, so with a metal accounting model that we generally create, we generally try and direct our customers to with the model to actually just keep it to the actual necessary items for the metal accounting that you have. So try not to slow it down with external things like storing mill powers and stuff like that in there unless it's absolutely necessary. So from a data acquisition point of view with production accounting, we can actually set up multiple data entry points if you want. So traditionally we might set up an estimate. An estimate might be like a 7-day moving average for an assay, or it might be like a mining estimate grade for your feed. And that's normally like the lowest level of the data entry, and obviously this is automatically calculated. And then obviously there's the integration component. So you might have assay data coming in from C-class. You might have mill tonnage data coming in from a data historian. You might have an online analyzer bringing information. The online analyzer would most likely kind of be an estimate to begin with, and the lab information would be a higher rank. And then of course there's a manual override that you can use in the system. And that will ultimately be what will be used as the reported value. And of course, there's reconciled values as well that would normally be done on the end of month or maybe a weekly basis even. So the approval process looks a bit more like this. So just to go into a bit more detail into it, obviously you can accept or reject the information. But traditionally what we set up is we set up 2 approval processes. So you would have a plant metallurgist approving information, and then a senior metallurgist or a metallurgy superintendent who would be approving the second level. Essentially, the metallurgist is approving that the inputs are correct and the calculations are done, and the senior metallurgist is approving that he's happy for the report to be sent out. And when those 2 levels of approval have completed, then that's when the data is published, and the data is made available to external reporting systems or to the actual report that we generate. And then there is the lock system where data is held until it's actually approved or rejected even before it can actually be used in the calculation process and goes through the sign-off process again. This is really like the approval process. It's really the backbone of a reliable reporting system. Having the ability to ensure your confidence in the data that's being sent out is one of the biggest strengths of a production accounting, really. And then, of course, there's data auditing. So in order to have a system that's reliable, you need to know what the system is actually doing, and you should be able to find out, 2 days ago who entered this particular value that's in the system. So while this may look daunting at first, there is a method to this madness. With production accounting, we create attribute IDs. They look like this, and once you understand the way that they're made, they're a little bit easier to understand. So this particular one is a copper assay, and you can see that this copper assay is reporting a value of 2.4. So traditionally with Excel, you'd click on a cell and you'd chase the formula back. With production accounting, the values that are actually used in that formula are all there visible for you. So in this particular formula, it's looking at an override, and then it's looking at multiple other assays as well. They just go off the screen from this screen capture, but it's looking at this override value, and then a LIMS value, and then an estimated value. So you can see here that the estimate is 2.46. The LIMS value is 2.40, and therefore, because this is the more important value, that's the one that's being used for the reporting system. So this audit trace and calculation trace works for any process. So any time of the day you can use it for shift the day, the month, and it also will tell you the details of people who've entered the information. So for example, for this override, if there was a value that was entered, it will tell you the value that was entered and the user who entered it and the time they entered it. Ultimately as well, the solution, production accounting solution will help users in these main ways really. So you want to, from an IT perspective, you want to have infrastructure that you can essentially look after. So production accounting just runs on a server. It's a Microsoft server, SQL Server database. So very easy to manage from an IT perspective. And yeah, obviously, if there are any issues, we have obviously customer support, and they can easily be achieved, and contact can be made. But we generally don't have any problems from an IT perspective, and also the integration capability is also something that IT generally like, because that takes out the need for files and linking files together and storing them in one location and that sort of thing. So, but really, the benefits are for metallurgists and superintendents really. So, from a metallurgy point of view, it takes our time to do metal accounting every morning and entering data every morning and constantly checking everything and trying to chase Excel formulas. Whereas with production accounting, the ultimate goal is to integrate the data so that essentially all the data is managed by exception. So unless there is something really wrong, that's the only time you should be entering data, but otherwise it should automatically be integrating data in by itself through other systems. And you also, from the data auditing, you can actually chase information, so find out where values came from. From a plant superintendent level as well, they would be often, always reviewing calculations and checking for errors, and you'd have a less control over the quality of the reports being sent out but from your department. Whereas with production accounting, you save time with calculations and data checking, and you have that control of allowing reports to be sent out. So this is really where production accounting helps the day-to-day users of the system. And then ultimately, from a plant manager perspective as well, the main benefit for this level is to remove that uncertainty. So you have confidence that the information you have received is approved and confirmed information, and also you have confidence that at any point you can go through and you can check the calculations, and you can even check the audit trace to find out where data has been changed, why it's been changed, who's changed that information, all those sorts of things. Just a note here as well regarding in-house systems. So from our experience, we have found that we've seen several customers develop their own in-house systems, and more often than not, we've found that they take a long time to implement, and there is a relatively low rate of success for those sorts of systems. production accounting has been around for 15 years now. It's had 15 years of development and 15 years of actual metallurgists using the system. So obviously it's been well developed to actually suit the needs of the metallurgists that use it on a daily basis. So what can we do next from here? I think the main takeaway from this webinar really is to actually honestly review the systems that you use, and to check the systems against your business requirements. With anything, if you of these weaknesses, if there's one, then it's not too bad. But when you suddenly have 2 or 3 weaknesses lined up, that's when the chain really breaks. So it's about actually being honest and having a proper review, and understanding exactly where weaknesses may lie, and that will ultimately lead to discussing how to fix those issues, and essentially make a better accounting system. If you would like to contact us for some more discussions, as Bruno said, he'll share contact information as well, and you can also book a live product demo with us. And but once again, thank you for taking the time to engage with us for this webinar. We're at Datamine. We look to make strategic partnerships with our customers. So our aim is so that we both can succeed.